All right, let's talk about the American Revolution. We all know the story, or at least we think we do. But we're going to peel back the layers and see it not just as a glorious fight for liberty, but maybe as something else. A messy, complicated battle over who gets to have the money, the power, and the control. Let's get into it.
You know, when you picture the American Revolution, you probably imagine everyone arm in arm, united against the British, all fighting for freedom. But what if I told you that picture is mostly a myth? What if the reality was a lot more fractured and a whole lot more divided?
I mean, just get a load of this. This comes from John Adams himself, one of the main guys, right? He figured the colonies were basically split into thirds. A third for the revolution, a third against it, and a third who just wanted to be left alone. This completely flips the script. This wasn't some unified movement. From the very beginning, this was a country at war with itself.
So if it wasn't everybody fighting together, then who exactly was leading the charge? And maybe more importantly, why? Well, this is where we have to start talking about money and class.
Okay, so look at these numbers because they're pretty staggering. The top 10% of the colonial population owned almost half of all the wealth. And the leaders of the revolution, Washington, Jefferson, Hancock, these guys were the 1%ers of their day. So for them, this wasn't just some abstract fight for liberty. It was also about making sure their massive personal fortunes were protected.
And this put the leadership in a really tough spot. They needed soldiers to actually fight the war, but they were deeply suspicious of the poor. They knew deep down that for most people, poor farmers, enslaved people, Native Americans, a revolution led by a bunch of rich guys didn't really offer them much. So they had to be convinced, or, well, forced to join the cause.
And this quote, wow, it just says it all, doesn't it? This is from a shoemaker who joined the Continental Army, and he's just brutally honest. He's not saying he fought for freedom or against tyranny. He basically says, look, I don't know or care about the politics. I joined up for a promotion, to make something of myself. For so many regular people, the war was a ladder, a way to maybe climb out of poverty, not some grand ideological statement.
So yeah, this idea of an army of purely passionate volunteers, not quite. In a lot of places, they had a draft. If your name was called, you had to go fight. Or you could hire someone to go for you, or pay a big fine. But guess who couldn't afford to do that? The poor. So if you didn't have money, it was your fight, whether you believed in it or not.
But here's the thing. Once the British were gone, all those tensions that were simmering under the surface, they didn't just disappear. They exploded. A whole new fight began, not against the king across the ocean, but right here at home, between Americans.
I mean, just look at this timeline. It's absolute chaos. Even during the war, you had riots in Philadelphia over the price of bread. Then the soldiers started mutinying because they weren't getting paid. It got so bad that a mob of angry soldiers literally chased the US Congress out of its own capital. The whole country was teetering on the edge of collapse.
And then came the final straw, Shays' Rebellion. Now you have to understand, Daniel Shays wasn't some random troublemaker. The guy was a hero of the Revolutionary War. But he and other farmers came home, buried in debt, and were losing their farms. So they did exactly what the revolution had taught them to do. They picked up guns and rebelled against a government they saw as unjust. For the wealthy elite, this was an absolute nightmare.
And this rebellion just exposed this huge crack in what the founders believed. You've got Thomas Jefferson chilling over in Paris saying, hey, a little rebellion now and then is a good thing, keeps everyone honest. But then you have Samuel Adams, the original firebrand rebel, mind you, now saying that if you rebel against their new government, the punishment is death. The tables had turned, and fast.
This quote from General Knox, writing to George Washington, really gets to the heart of what they were so afraid of. He's not just complaining about taxes, he's spelling out their deepest fear, that the poor majority would finally realize, hey, there are way more of us than there are of them, and decide to use that power to take what they wanted. This was the terror of real democracy.
And that fear, that absolute terror of the masses getting out of hand, is precisely what led to the next step, creating a brand new, powerful national government that could put these rebellions down for good. So what was the Constitution actually for? Well, a historian named Charles Beard came along and proposed a pretty radical idea. He said, what if the Constitution isn't mainly a document about freedom and liberty? What if it's an economic document, a kind of business plan, written by wealthy men to protect their own financial interests?
And this slide right here, this is everything. Just look at who was in the room writing this thing. You had people who'd loaned money to the government, land speculators, slave owners, merchants. Now look at who wasn't there. Slaves, servants, men who didn't own property. And all women. The vast majority of the population had zero say. So naturally, the document they created was designed to protect the interests of the people writing it.
And you don't have to take my word for it. James Madison, the father of the Constitution, lays the whole strategy out in the open. He writes that the biggest danger to a country comes from the conflict between the rich and the poor, and his solution? Create a government so big and complex that it would be almost impossible for a poor majority to ever get organized enough to challenge the wealthy minority. It was a system built to contain democracy, not to unleash it.
So, the Constitution worked. It created a stable government. But for so many people in America, the real revolution, the one for true equality, was far from over. Think about it from the perspective of Native Americans. The American victory was an absolute catastrophe. Before, they could at least try to play the British and the Americans against each other. Now they were facing one powerful, unified, land-hungry country. For them, the revolution wasn't freedom. It was the beginning of the end.
And of course, the huge, glaring hypocrisy of a nation founded on the idea that all men are created equal, while holding people in bondage, wasn't lost on Black Americans. People like Benjamin Banneker, a brilliant free Black scientist, immediately started using the revolution's own language, throwing the words of the Declaration of Independence right back in Thomas Jefferson's face, demanding that the new nation live up to its own ideals.
And what about the famous Bill of Rights? Well, that was added mostly to get people on board with the new Constitution. But those promises were pretty fragile. Get this, just 7 years after the First Amendment supposedly guaranteed freedom of speech, the government passed the Sedition Act, which literally made it a crime to criticize them. So much for free speech. So in the end, the American Revolution did create a new nation, with a new government run by a new elite. It did stabilize the country and protect property, but it also locked in place the deep inequalities of wealth and race that have been there all along. And it leaves us with a question we are still struggling with to this very day. Who is this country really for?
If you like this video, please like and share it with your family and friends and subscribe this channel, and don't forget to click the bell icon. And this was the American History Part 5. If you have not watched previous 4 parts, then go to this channel and watch remaining parts or click on Part 1 on the screen you are seeing. Thank you.